This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, I am Michael Cutler, and this is the Michael Cutler Moment, brought to you by the Glazov Gang. Today, the topic of my discussion is a somber one. It is the 15th anniversary of the terror attacks of September 11, 2001, the worst terrorist attack ever launched, carried out on American soil since the founding of our great nation. I am concerned that our country, our government, is still failing to learn the lessons that it should have learned, not only on 9/11, but in previous terrorist attacks. As a New Yorker, the ashes from 9/11 landed on my home and in part contained the ashes of my neighbors. I had testified before Congress 4.5 years earlier, on May 20th, 1997, on the nexus between visa fraud, immigration benefit fraud, and two terrorist attacks that were carried in the United States in January 93, by the name of Kansi, a citizen of Pakistan, shot up the CIA, killed 2 CIA officers, wounded 3 others, and he had applied for political asylum in the United States. Just 1 month later, we had the first bombing at the World Trade Center that left 6 people dead, more than 1,000 people injured, and approximately $500 million in damages inflicted on that complex of buildings. The tower nearly came down sideways. You would have thought that that would have been the wake-up call for America, for our leaders. It was not. 9/11 happened, and since 9/11, there have been more terrorists. The bombing of the Boston Marathon, we saw what happened in San Bernardino. There were other attacks that killed innocent people, and still more attacks that, for one reason or another, fortunately failed. A good case in point, the so-called Times Square bomber, Faisal Shahzad. Again, we have an individual from Pakistan who enters the United States on a student visa, engages in a marriage fraud, apparently, and acquires United citizenship less than a year before he carries out what he thought would be a deadly attack. Thankfully, nobody killed. And he actually expressed remorse at his sentencing that he didn't kill anybody. So he's now rotting in a prison for the rest of his life. But the lessons continue to pile up, and our government continues to fail to learn the lessons. Currently, the Obama administration has admitted more than 10,000 Syrian refugees, and they cannot be vetted. Now, that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of James Comey, the director of the FBI. It's the opinion of Michael Steinbach, the head of counter-terrorism for the FBI. It's the same opinion that was expressed by the head of the Central Intelligence Agency, that there's no way to vet these people, and that ISIS wants desperately to embed their terrorists in refugee flows heading to the West, whether it's Europe or the United States. So this quest for open borders, this quest to ignore common sense by our government continues unabated. You know, our borders and our immigration laws are our first and last line of defense. Those laws that I speak about have nothing to do with race, religion, or ethnicity. It's one of many lies being told to the American people, not just by politicians, but by so-called journalists. They talk about the Latino voter. We need to placate the Latino voter. Folks, to be blunt about this, I don't care what your ethnicity, your race, or your religion is. I don't even care what your political orientation is. All American citizens want some fundamental things from their government. They want a secure country where the military keeps our enemies as far from our shores as possible. They want law enforcement to keep our communities as safe and free of crime as possible. They want the schools to educate our children effectively. And they want to know that when an American works hard, studies hard, has perhaps a little bit of luck mixed into that pot of stew, that American has hopes, real hopes, of writing the next American success story. This is not about Latino voters. In fact, the very notion of Latino voters flies in the face of reason, and it's a statement of bigotry and profiling. To simply state that anybody with a last name that has the last name of Rodriguez or Garcia wants something different is an outrageous statement. And yet, no matter what the 9/11 Commission has to say, and for the record, I provided testimony to the 9/11 Commission, Both political parties, literally and figuratively, appear to be hell-bent on taking down our borders and providing lawful status to millions of aliens whose true identities, backgrounds, affiliations, and intentions are unknown and unknowable. And today, when Donald Trump stands up and says maybe we should not be giving visas to people from countries that sponsor terrorism, the journalists and political opponents alike accuse him of being an extremist, saying that he needs to soften his tone. What's really remarkable is that on February the 24th, 1998, 2 days short of the 5th anniversary of the bombing at the World Trade Center in 1993, the Senate Judiciary Committee, Subcommittee on Terrorism and Technology, conducted a hearing on foreign terrorists operating in the United States. One of the people who attended that hearing, participated in that hearing, was a senator by the name of Dianne Feinstein. Incredibly, Dianne Feinstein, at that hearing, 3.5 years before 9/11, said that maybe we should not be issuing visas to citizens of countries that are engaged in terrorism. Now, here is this liberal Democrat making the same statement that Donald Trump now makes, and yet no one said anything to criticize her. But today, the media and members of both political parties paint Mr. Trump as a wild-eyed lunatic for saying, hey, let's be careful that we don't let terrorists into our country. At that hearing, Feinstein challenged the sensibility behind what was then a pilot program, the visa waiver program. Please understand the point. The issue of immigration is not about left or right. It is about right or wrong. It is not anti-immigrant to say that we need to control who enters the country, just as it is not antisocial to ask the person who knocks on your door seeking entry, who are you and why are you here? And if you can't get a straight answer to that fundamental question, you'd have to be a lunatic to let that person into your home. America is acting irrationally, but it's not alone in this. And look at what just happened in Great Britain with Brexit. Look at the problems that Merkel is now facing politically. The globalists from various countries around the world are getting pushback from the citizens of true democracies that don't want to lose their lives or their freedoms to the lunacy of globalism. I'm all for diverse cultures. I'm a New Yorker. I live in the most diverse city probably in the world, certainly in the United States, and I have no plans of going anywhere. That's part of what makes New York so exciting for me and so many others. But we need to be certain that we don't allow people into this country who have as their ultimate goal our destruction. It's important that all Americans get involved. You know, this is supposed to be a democracy. We're supposed to get our voices heard. I always like to make the point that democracy is not a spectator sport. We live in a time of challenges, threats, many problems. Immigration, the failures to secure our borders, the failures to restore integrity to the immigration system, which, by the way, parallels the lack of integrity of also many of our politicians, is a threat to our survival and the survival of our children. Please get involved. The clock is ticking. Time is not on our side. Let's make certain that we restore integrity to immigration, and let's try to restore some integrity to the political process along the way as well. I thank you for joining me this evening. Always a privilege to be able to speak with you. Please support the Glazov Gang at jamieglazov.com and make certain to subscribe to its YouTube website. See you next time.